Oh, the mistake, and McBreen's clean through on goal here to win it. What a miss from Daniel McBreen.
Fucking dog shit.
G'day everyone and welcome to the latest episode of A-League Off Air. Now, our regular listeners will know that I generally start with a little bit of an intro. I did have an idea for this week's intro and had written half of it when Macca dropped the message in the group chat that there was a certain topic that was off limits this week in A-League Off Air, that we weren't allowed to mention the Portuguese words for the beautiful game at all. So that meant a whole rethink for me. I wasn't allowed to go with what I was going to do, which was going to, have a little play on words, etc. So I've cut it short. I'm going to bring it back to basically what it means to be a little bit nostalgic about football. And when you grow up in Australia or New Zealand, playing the round ball game and just everything that football brings to you as a young Aussie kid or young Kiwi kid playing football. We know the difference between our Stowers and our CSKAs. We know that Go Ahead Eagles is a fucking Dutch football team, for God's sake. We know the strongest play in La Paz. We know all sorts of random stuff from all over the world about football. And yes, we do know lofty notions of culture and history thanks to football. But the biggest lessons we learn from football are when we step out onto the pitch every weekend across our two great countries. And there we learn that football really is the lingua franca of our two countries of immigration, countries of people all over the world coming and speaking in one language. And that language is vaffanculo, va cagare, testa di cazzo, vete alla mierda, jebemti pička di matina, agamisu remalaka, siktir git, idhab ilhal jahimi, fuck off, cunt. These are the languages that we know as football. This is A-League Off Air. Daniel McBreen, do you have any others that you learnt on your travels? And I know you do.
Do know a little bit of Romanian swear words, if you like. Du-te pizde mate, să te fut in gura. That was obviously when you go to another country, that's all the things you learn. You learn a football language on the park, the swear words, probably not in that order, and then you actually learn how to communicate in the real world. So, yeah, I've got a few Romanian swear words tucked away that I can pull out every now and then. But it's funny, you actually start swearing in the foreign language when you go there. After you've been there a little bit, you start swearing. Instead of saying fuck, you end up saying futus morti mate instead, or something like that on the pitch. Exactly. So it's amazing how quickly you can assimilate.
Yeah. Exactly. And they get you in trouble as well. I remember playing in France and you'd learn putain and all this, ferme ta gueule, all these sort of things. And then we were at training one day and I had a shot and the goalkeeper saved it. And I'd learnt son of a bitch. But son of a bitch in English just rolls off the tongue. Indiana Jones used son of a bitch. It's not the worst thing. Say that in fucking Europe and you're in big trouble. And I remember going fils de pute to the goalkeeper and he just took off his gloves and came for me. And all my teammates were like, he doesn't know. It was brilliant. Perhaps on this moment, we'll bring in our guest. And I'm not saying that he's a son of a bitch, far from Ben Sigmund. And I'm not going to say it in any other language. He's a Kiwi legend. He went to the World Cup, over 30 caps for his country, nearly 200 matches for Wellington Phoenix in the A-League, and plenty of to-dos with Daniel McBreen. I asked Macca how he knew Ben Sigmund. He just goes, just playing against him. He's the type of player I love to play against, hard as fuck, and then you go for a beer afterwards. Ben, is that how you remember McBreen or not quite?
Yeah, no, exactly the same. And, I think the most thing I enjoy about playing Macca was that you did go hard on the field, and then once the whistle, finishes the game, it's all over and you do go and have a beer, and that's the most enjoyable part of it. And, some guys, I always felt that they always carried it on after the game, but for us, it was, do or die out on the field. But then, after it, it's all about having fun and shaking hands.
Exactly.
What was Ben, I've got to ask you, what was your favourite foreign language insult that you picked up on the football pitches?
I was a bit naive with it all. I did play in Germany a little bit, and again, it was the same thing over there. Like for us in New Zealand or in English, like fuck you was, you just dealt with it. But I was saying it over in Germany, and it was the same thing. They wanted to kill me. Like people were like, mate, you can't talk like that. Like it's just not acceptable. And I'm like, okay, I'll try and tone it down a bit, I was scared. Like they literally, the FU is a big no-no. Like for me, it was in Germany where we were.
We're pretty lax here with our language, aren't we? Let's be honest.
Yeah, exactly. We are a little bit. Even the Americans get a bit offended, I think.
Yeah, they do. They can't get over the use of our C-bombs, which is quite you throw it out very regularly in Australia and New Zealand, and that can be a term of endearment quite often to throw out the C-bomb to your mate, and foreigners just can't seem to work out how we just throw it out like that. But anyway,
is Sigmund German?
Well, my granddad's from Czechoslovakia.
Oh, okay.
So that's where the Sigmund came from. So yeah, but in saying, talking about swearing, actually, I've actually tried to rein it in a lot lately, guys. To be honest, because my daughter was shocking, and I was like, how can you tell her off? She's like, but you do it, Dad. Mum does it. And so me and my wife are like, okay, well, let's just make a bit more of an effort here and try and tone that down around the kids too.
Yeah, it's
this podcast is definitely off limits for our kids.
Yeah, I find it really difficult having an academy now with nearly 200 kids under the age of 16 down, and I get a couple of them come up to me going, "Oh, listen to your podcast on the week, Macca. It's pretty good," and I'm like, No, you're not supposed to listen to the podcast. All right, this is for adults only, please. I do have that dichotomy there where I'm like in with the kids trying to keep the language out and then coming on here, and I'll probably get it all in this area here and get it all out of my system.
Handy.
I think there are a few people that listen to our commentary on the A-League as well and are waiting for the moment when we're going to drop it because we forget where we are, and occasionally the thought does cross my mind, and then quickly, no, it's got to be out. I wonder if it's crossed our bosses' minds, because I was looking through the roster, and Macca and I aren't commentating any more games together until the new year, and maybe that's why, because they just want to keep it safe. You are listening to A-League Off Air. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, leave a rating, give us 5 stars if you can. It helps with what do you call those computer algorithms? Yeah, that come up. So get on there, give us a rating, have a message, share the love, and let's get into it, shall we? We're here with Ben Sigmund, Phoenix legend, because we thought, the A-League now does seem to stand for Aratoa more than Australian League at the moment, with the Kiwis coming into last weekend in first and second. We are going to get to the derby in a moment, but Siggy, just for your information, we go through it game by game. Last week, James Meredith only watched one game, but he was still a great guest. So if you've seen more than one game, you're going to be in front. Your daughter's not listening, so let us know what you really think. And we're going to start with Brisbane v Sydney, and I'll start with Macca, because the first half, Macca, we probably could have given it a bit of colourful language to sum it up and try and keep people interested, because it wasn't the most thrilling first half of football. But then it all came alive in the second half, and in the end, Jaden Kucharski with a typical late winner. What did you make of this one? It was an interesting match for a Brisbane side that had the week off, and a Sydney FC who have been on their travels.
Yeah, look, to put it bluntly, the first half was fucking boring. I think when we put the microphone down at half time, we looked at each other and rolled our eyes and went, fucking hell, come on, give us something here. It also, and this is a quirk of the camera angles and where they put the crowd, because of the way the crowds are situated, they always have, the camera always wants to be on the side that isn't facing into the sun. They sell the seats out of the sun first and the boxes and everything, so they actually blocked the other side off, and it looked empty. But there was actually about 8,000 people there underneath where the camera was. It was a really good crowd, good atmosphere. The den was pumping, and I thought that took a little bit away from it as well, just from the viewing from people who weren't at the game. But the game in itself, first half, Sydney really dominated. Every time Brisbane got the ball, they looked like they could threaten Sydney's high line, but their fucking passing was atrocious, and they just didn't actually threaten at all. And it wasn't until early in the second half that Waddingham got put through, hit the post, and you went, oh, here we go. Could be a game on here. Then, we were bemoaning the fact that the Raw in particular couldn't string a few passes together. They needed someone to come on who was going to have a cool head, bit of composure, and pick a pass, because that Sydney line was very, very high and looked vulnerable. And lo and behold, Florent Berenguer comes on, fucking takes a touch and threads one in behind for them to equalise. I know Sydney had already gone ahead with Kamala, but it just took that senior composed head to go, do you know what? This is how it's done. Bang, touch, play it in behind, and showed that Sydney will score goals this year, but I think they are, with that high line and that high press and that high intensity they want to do high, they are very vulnerable to quick players in behind. And the second half exploded with 5 goals. Sydney, Klamala, great finish from Senna, the way that he poked that ball before anyone actually thought he was going to take it. I think it took everybody by surprise. He poked it and it was in the goal before Freak even really dived, and before we even realised what happened. But as he's starting to become accustomed to doing, Jaden Kaczarski fucking bombed one in right at the end and saved the day for Sydney. Now, plenty of talk this year about Douglas Costa, Joe Lolly, all the players that have come in for Sydney FC. Well, they're out. Adrian Segicic and Jaden Kaczarski are 2 players who were starting to make a name for themselves and looked like they were going to be on the back burner and not get any game time. They didn't get much game time this week, but they delivered when they needed to. And I think the depth that Sydney has, that it's a real plus for Tale. But if you're those 2 players, and if those other senior players come back and you're not getting minutes, come the transfer window, do they start thinking, do you know what? I've got to go somewhere else where I'm going to play?
Well, Kaczarski's 22 now as well, so, he's been waiting in the wings a long time. Siggy, what did you make of this one, especially with your defender's eyes looking at how this one turned, and there was a certain, I wouldn't say an inevitability, but it felt like Sydney had something in their locker just for that last minute.
Yeah. For me, I felt like Brisbane were happy to probably, keep it tight as possible, not concede too many. And it kind of looked like they would have been, happy to just kind of keep Sydney out. And then, going into the break, they probably would have been pretty happy, I would have thought. And then, obviously, Macca said the same thing. They come out, and by scoring a goal, it made, Brisbane go like they had to have a crack. And then it kind of opened up the game, and, I think, if we're brutally honest, Brisbane would have been happy with a 2-2 draw and probably would have seen that out and taken a point and run. And then, that winner was just outstanding. I had to watch it a couple of times because he was on the fly. It was happening really, really quickly, and he sort of adjusted his feet to be able to just put it in the top bin. Absolutely stunning goal. And, the celebrations were probably a bit much, but he would have been buzzing, eh?
I liked it. I like that. I like it. I like having arrogant young kids in your in your football team that know what they're worth. Macca's right. Perhaps, in a few months' time that will lead to transfers away or whatever. Raphael Strauch got his first goal as well. It's worth a mention. There was that Berenguer pass. But, Brisbane twice coming from behind, probably thinking themselves, we're hanging on here. We've got to try and get something from it. Leo Senna's goal was sensational. Yeah. I think, that's 2 losses now for Brisbane, but they have found the back of the net. Siggy, when you play against Sydney, when Sydney are the bling bling team, and I was looking back through the results over the years, there's one match against Sydney that you played in that you probably haven't forgotten, where there was a certain Alessandro Del Piero on the field. In fact, that's right, you scored in that as well, didn't you?
Yeah, but I do remember that because I remember trying to, like, everyone says hold him up. So I was trying to hold him up. He did about 6 step overs, and then I think I ended up going one way, and he just went boom, top bin. I was like, that was kind of what I wasn't meant to do, but like, he was just another level in terms of skill.
Yeah, because now Sydney have brought in Douglas Costa, who looks like probably the biggest name we've had in the A-League since then. It's a sort of question now of waiting and seeing, along with Juan Mata, what they deliver on the pitch. Yep. And it's something of a concern that Douglas Costa is already sidelined with injury. I think that's always the fear when you bring in a 35-year-old former great, or still perhaps with a bit of great left in them. Anything else you want to add to this one, Macca?
No, I think Waddingham, goal and an assist, hit the post. I think he's still showing that he's given the right service. He'll score goals. He's good when they have possession and they're getting crosses into the box. He's good in the air, but he's shown his pace and his runs in behind are good as well. It'll be interesting to see if Stroke and him play together a lot this season. I think that's the plan, to get them together, and hopefully it is, because they both look like they could cause some problems for defences, and that's only a positive for Brisbane Roar.
Yeah, maybe a comment on Jay O'Shea, who we know is such an influential player in that Brisbane side and really struggled to have an influence in the middle of the park. I think that's where Sydney were most proactive, as they won that midfield battle, but won it well. I mean, Keegan Jelicic didn't have a great game as well. And there, I think we see perhaps how dangerous Sydney can be this year, because they may play a high line, but they are good all over the park.
Well, that's it. If they play a high line, which will make them susceptible to pacing behind, but you've got to get there first. You've got to get time on the ball, facing forward, to play those balls forward. And the way they press, it makes that very difficult. And it takes, a good player to do that. And Jay O'Shea is a great player for Brisbane over the last, I think this is his 7th year now, or 7th season. He just couldn't get any time on the ball. Keegan Jelicic, I think at one stage we were looking at his stats, his pass percentage was something like down at like nearly 50%. He was losing the ball so often, and he's a quality player as well. So it shows that the pressure they're putting them under, it's fair to say, it's going to take some good play to unlock those, the chances in behind. But, the A-League players, the A-League's got the players to do that. So they are susceptible, Sydney.
There was one moment right at the start of the match as well where Tara rushed and interviewed Raphael Strauch ahead of the game and said, "So, what do you think? You've been out on the Suncorp Stadium for the first time?" And the kid went, "The pitch is not so great."
I love his honesty.
Welcome to the A-League, mate, because you're going to find this every now and again. So that's it for Friday night football at Suncorp. Brisbane edged by Sydney FC in a thriller. You are listening to A-League Off Air. Don't forget, we finally have a prize to give away as well. I didn't mention it off the top. We will be giving away 2 tickets to the Unite round coming up in 2 weeks' time, 2 weekends' time after the international break, the men's international break, because the women keep going. So we've got 2 tickets to give away there if you answer our Who the Fuck Am I quiz question correctly. But now the moment that everyone across the Dutch has been waiting to discuss. First question, Ben Sigmund. Do we call it the Kiwi Classico, or does everyone just say, "Fuck off, Australia, this is the New Zealand derby"?
It's the fucking New Zealand derby. 100%.
Excellent. You were there.
100%.
26,000 people. I think it was the biggest ever regular season crowd for the Phoenix. Fantastic atmosphere. Great game. I thought watching it, I watched it again yesterday because it was on just before we commentated, Macca and I, on the Central Coast, so never easy to watch. I watched it again, and the intensity in the challenges right from the first whistle, and it went nearly the whole game. You really had the feeling that this is what a derby was about, that both teams wanted to win it. How was it to be there, and what did you make of the contest?
Yeah, totally agree. Like, they were giving it everything. Two good teams, working really hard. At the stadium, I felt like it could have been, there wasn't like all moments. Like, it was, I know it was intense and everything, but, there wasn't, there was a few chances, half chances, but I just felt like it could have gone, like, just needed a couple more big tackles, needed a couple more chances early on. Like, there was a crowd there and, 26,000, and it was buzzing. It might have been because, it was a Phoenix home game and they didn't score to kind of really get the crowd going. And from a fan and being at the stadium, I think that we were just looking for a little bit more to bring it to life. And then, the Phoenix had that chance, in the sort of second half where he headed it down, it went over the bar.
Yeah.
And I think that was the Phoenix chance to get the crowd going and get in behind them, and that they could have ended up winning 1-0. And, the fans would have got them through that game, but unfortunately they didn't score. And then, Auckland just came back in the end and got those two late goals. But probably a draw, I think I was thinking, was probably fair, but well done to Auckland to seal the deal and carry on that winning streak.
Now, the fact that it was a derby, I think, personally, I think it was Adam Kersey was the referee for the game. I thought he handled it really well. He let some hard tackles go. He let a bit of physicality into the game because there was a real derby atmosphere about it. Like, right from the very first minute, there was that challenge early, and then there was another
challenge
one.
exactly.
Then there was retribution about a minute and a half later, and you thought, here we go. The boys actually realised this is a derby, and he could have easily gone straight away and started throwing yellow cards out to calm it down, but then that would have caused problems later in the game because you want that to go. You want, as long as it's fair and no one complained, everyone got up and went up, it was, you want that to happen. And you're right, Siggy, I thought Auckland were probably the better team as far as when they had the ball, they moved it around, but Wellington had the better chances. Costa Barbarouses around the middle of the first half, I think it was about the 18th minute, that ball that was put over to the top, and it was a lovely cushion layback from Tim Payne. And I thought, as that just came off his foot, I went, 1-0. Costa's going to bury this. Yeah. This is where his range. It's on the right angle. He can swing his hips through it, and he hit it straight down Paulson's throat. And you went, that could be a big moment there. And as much as Auckland pushed and probed, and again, Gilliam was sort of there and thereabouts. He had a shot from an angle that you thought, okay, yep, keep it. Olawayumi should save that, and he did. They didn't have the great chances. You mentioned that header from Ishiga. He's heading that almost on the floor. It's like he had it in his mind, I'm going to head this. And as the ball dipped, he didn't adjust himself. And if he would have just went with his foot and slid in, he would have just been tapping that into an empty net. And I think, as you say, they go ahead and win that game 1-0 because they see it out. And you got to give it to Spoonie in the commentary as well, because about a minute and a half before they score the goal, Auckland, he said, well, it's at that stage now where you feel the tension so much that it's going to take a mistake or something to break this game open, and then all of a sudden, bang, the pass goes straight to Brimmer, and the keeper's fucking just had a brain fade and given it away in that area, trying to overplay, in my opinion, in the 89th minute, under heavy pressure. And I know that's the way it is, football is these days, but sometimes you think, just hit that next line. You don't want to take that chance there at that stage of the game because there's not really any coming back. And Jake Brimmer ended up with a brace. And I thought it was really good too, the second goal, when Toomey ran and scored. You see it so often that Brimmer scores and see players run off after a 1-yard tap in and celebrate with the crowd. He turned around and went straight to Toomey. You're the fucking man. Come here. Let's celebrate. And everyone went to him on his debut to say, no, that's all you, mate. Well done. And it's like they were saying, mate, you've worked so hard to get here. Fucking fantastic. And I love that from Brimmer. I think he's the vice captain of the club. Comes off the bench, but makes sure that the young fella on debut gets the plaudits for that goal.
You also have to be careful when you mishit a finish from about 35 centimetres out and it rolls across the line without anybody in front of you, not to overdo the celebrations either.
Hey, it goes in, no one gives a shit.
There is
as soon
that
as it
danger.
crosses that line,
It was Cornthwaite-esque, the finish.
I think it needed that, right? Because he had so much time. It actually needed to do what he did. Like, if he hit it cleanly, he probably would have had it saved.
I think there were so many great storylines about and around the game as well. You know, the banter, and we're going to chat a little bit about the banter later in our shit or hit section. But Alex Rufer not going to play, then plays the full game. Louis Toomey, who never got the chance at Phoenix and was let go, having come through the reserves. You know, I think there were so many things going on. What is it like for Alex Rufer in New Zealand, Ben, where he's from such footballing royalty? A lot of people thought he wasn't the most technical. You know, he had a couple of injuries early on in his career. I think he is a fucking legend at the moment. Honestly, the way he plays, he's not the greatest footballer on the face of the planet. But without him in that Wellington side, I can't see how they'd be able to achieve anything. I think he's unbelievably important. And really, I admire what he does on that football pitch. He is ever present. He is everywhere the whole time. What is it like for Alex Rufer in Wellington?
I think it's a really good shout. I was going to say the same thing. Like, he came to us when he was 15. You know, he was struggling to break in. He came with that big name, you know, mainly his uncle, Winton Rufer, sorry.
Winton, yeah.
And, you know...
Careful, they'll take your passport away.
I know. But he honestly... In the last 2 or 3 years, he is the Phoenix. Yeah. Like, he's becoming, you know, give him another year or two and he becomes, you know, a legend of the club. And he leads, I think he's growing in leadership. I think he's a great leader and a captain and everyone looks up to him. So, you know, like, I was going to say, I had in my notes that I wonder whether he did play well, don't get me wrong. He created both opportunities for the Phoenix to score, so you can't fault his game and the way he played. I just wonder whether he was at 100. You know, like, just at times, normally you see him a bit more involved or making a couple more of those big tackles to really gee the boys on. So, you know, I probably question whether he was 100, but, you know, still, he was one of the better players on the field in the weekend. And, you know, that ball he crossed over, you know, with the header that they missed, it was just gut-wrenching because he created that opportunity from almost nothing.
Yeah, he's involved in pretty much, he starts almost every attack. He wants to get the ball, no matter how much pressure he's under, he's always going, give me the ball, and he always knows he's out. And whether that's just to even just move the guys that are marking him out of a space that he knows the ball wants to go to and he just pops it to the side or back so they can play into that space. He's such an intelligent player. And like you say, he's not going to turn and razz a player and all that. He's not that kind of player, but his movement, his vision, and he does have a fucking great final pass and vision to pull that off as well. I just think, like you say, everything seems to be revolving around him. And when you need someone to step up and smash someone to sort of put them in their place, he's a big boy as well, isn't he?
Yeah, no, he's come a long, long way. And, you know, I remember when I was just starting to sort of leave the Phoenix, the club were trying to get rid of him. Like, you know, he was like, do I go? Do I stay? What should I do? And, you know, I actually feel a little bit terrible because I was like, mate, if you're not playing, like, maybe you got to look elsewhere. And he said, no, I'm going to stick it out. And I just look at him and I go, mate, you're an absolute champion for doing that because, you know, even I was sort of saying, mate, do you think it's worth staying? Yeah. You know, and he has, and now he's, you know, I think he's going to become a Phoenix legend if he stays a bit longer.
When we look at the history of the A-League and we see these players coming through and identifying with a club and identifying with fixtures as well, when we look at the impact that Western Sydney's arrival had for Sydney FC and the game in Sydney with the Melbourne derbies and the history they've written. how much would you have liked to have had a New Zealand derby when you were playing? What does it bring? And is the future going to keep building on this? Are the crowds here to stay? We hope they are in New Zealand because, in Australia in recent years, we've looked to the Matildas to try and drive the interest in the game. And a lot of people thinking, they're doing great things for Australian football. Hopefully we'll see that reflected in the A-League. Now we're looking across the ditch and seeing what the Kiwis are doing. We're sitting top of the table, 25,000 at derbies. Is this feeling there in New Zealand, and what does it mean for the game there?
Yeah, it's definitely there. There's, I look back and when I was coming through the ranks, we had no academies, we had no pathways. I was a soccer faggot, homo. Yeah. It was rugby. All the schools you went to was first 15s. And I look at it now and I probably go deeper in terms of, there's pathways, there's opportunities, there's professional football in 2 clubs in New Zealand. The clubs now need to buy into, tap into the professional game around, giving the opportunity to these young kids to come through and make the Phoenix or Auckland FC. And not just the fans and the crowd. I look at the depth of how many people play football in this country now. It's you want to see the numbers based on what rugby is. It's unbelievable how far the game has come, not just from that professional ring. It's filtering right down and through grassroots and all the way through. And I'm sitting here, I was doing road patrol with my daughter this morning, and I heard these 2 kids go, "Oh man, did you see the Phoenix? They lost 2-0 and chat about football." Whereas it would have been talking about the All Blacks 10 years ago. And what about that try from, Justin Marshall and Richie McCaw or whoever else? So it's in the schools, it's everywhere. And I just chuckled because I thought, 15 years ago, I was a homo. I was an absolute, everything under the sun. I struggled to stay in the game because it was so rugby dominant and there was so much pressure to go and play rugby.
I think also the clubs have bought into that as well, and they've been very good with their, we talked about the banter and, the banner going over the game last week in Auckland saying New Zealand is yellow, see you next week. And the clubs have bought in that, signs outside Auckland saying, again, New Zealand is yellow. So I think the way the clubs have bought into that to try and generate that interest in the community as well, and it's great that it's filtered down, but you still got to have that at the top. If you're not visible at the top and the kids can't see that, then sometimes there's that disconnect. And I think that's been a problem in the A-League in the past is we haven't had mainstream visibility as much as we have. But the Kiwis, they've bought into it. They're putting it out there, and we saw some pretty cool banter with it as well. Over the course of the last week or 2.
And fantastic that we're able... go Ben.
Yes, sorry, I just felt like what it's going to do as well as it's going to raise what we do from a professional arena, because it's not just Wellington now, it's Auckland. So they're going to have to step up in how they operate as a football club, how they look after players, how they develop players, the pathways through the club, all those types of things where they're going to go, well, if we don't get this right, then everyone's just going to want to go to the other team. So, it's exciting, in every aspect, on and off the field.
Yeah. Yeah, it's also amazing what you say about what you experienced growing up as well, and we know this has been well documented. We don't need to go over it over and over, but from Johnny Warren's book, Sheilers, Wogs and Poofters, this idea of what football represented was just essentially a victim of discrimination across the board of society for so many years. And look, I think it's so great now that we can embrace, whether it's openly gay, Matilda's Josh Cavallo, that we celebrate immigration, that our Socceroos and Matildas have foreign-born players, that our Aussies can go and play for other countries as well. It's all to be celebrated, but it's also important not to forget what the history had. And I think all of us, the 90s, the 80s and 90s were the greatest era for football anywhere around the world that we grew up. And that's why it captured our imagination. I feel sorry for the young kids that are growing up now that don't have that. When the whole thing switched from to full on professionalism, to superstardom, yet was still ragged edge enough to have these amazing characters. It was a beautiful time, but for all of us, we were victims, all of us, of that, and that's why so many went overseas as well to look for it somewhere else, or change sport, change game. And it's not just in football. When you think about, the kids that came for immigrants or gay kids, you would move away from sport, move away from football, try and find a place to hide in Australian society instead of celebrating it. So let's hope that football continues to be the leader in that department. And part of that leads me just about perfectly on to our quiz question, because that's it. We don't need to talk about New Zealand for the rest of the season.
That's it. Yep, they're done now.
We've given that's done. So we've been threatening to give away a prize on this podcast for a year now, and we do finally have one. It is courtesy of the APL, so thank you to them for reaching out and giving us the 2 ticks to the Unite round. A little quick word then on the Unite round, which takes place in 2 weeks' time on the Macca, I don't even have fucking dates. 22nd, 23rd?
Yep.
When is it? Yep. That weekend?
Yep.
22nd, 23rd, 24th of November. Whoa.
Well done.
That's not a great way to pump it up, is it? The men's games are all being played at Allianz Stadium in Sydney. The women's games are all being played at Leichhardt Oval. It's 6 double headers, the Friday, Saturday, Sunday in each competition. There's a fan zone at Moore Park. There's a fan zone at Leichhardt Oval as well. If you're a club member, you got a free ticket this year. There's so many improvements on last year. You've got, I think, public transport is free from like Bathurst, Newcastle, Wollongong, all over the place. You can all come to Sydney if you're in those areas. If you're in New Zealand, you're going to have to fly, but I think it's going to be worth it, particularly if you're an Auckland or Wellington member, because you're going to get your ticket to the game as well. There's 15% off accommodation with certain hotel chains as well. So look, you got to be in it to win it. Here's your chance to be a part of it. It's our weekly quiz question. Who the fuck am I? Last week's answer, and congratulations to those who got it, was Brett Holman, who played in the Netherlands, won the league there, won the cup as well. I think he played in Saudi as well from memory. I don't have last week's notes with me. And of course scored in the World Cup in 2010. This week's question then. Who the fuck am I? I left my homeland without playing a professional match and spent the next 15 years overseas in 3 different countries, winning 2 league titles, 3 cups, and 3 Super Cups. I even won the UEFA Cup Winners' Cup and played at the World Cup. I ended my career in the NSL. And while I never played A-League football, my name is still often heard on the broadcast. Who the fuck am I? So, to answer that, if you answer, it means you've got to reply to either our pod social media accounts, whether that be Twitter, Instagram, or on YouTube. You have to subscribe, you have to follow, you have to retweet as well, because we want to share a bit of the love, and you have to get the answer right, of course. And then if you're in Perth or Brizzy and you're not planning on coming to the Unite round or New Zealand, you can still answer and we'll get in contact with you and you can say, no, give the tickets to the next person along the line. So let's make sure that these tickets don't go to waste, because otherwise we won't be fucking doing it again. There we go. There is the quiz question for this week. Next up, Macca, and it was you and I again. We were on the coast, the Central Coast Mariners versus Perth. A scoreless draw, the second in a row for the champions at our paradise. Before the game, I was telling Macca, look, it's Halloween. If they're shit, I'm going to call them the Central Ghost Mariners, as though they weren't even here. And then Perth Gory, if things got ugly again for Perth. I'm spineless. I didn't have the guts to do it, even though, it was pretty much Central Ghost Mariners for Halloween. This was just average.
Yep.
Macca, average between two sides that really struggle to know where the back of the net is.
Well, before the game even started, there was a major fuck up from comms, mentioning that there was a coin toss instead of a coin toss. That was an interesting one from you, Robbie. And I'm sure that's one you'd like to commentate differently. You could probably say that your Central Ghost Mariners and your Perth Glory would apply to the final third, because let's be honest, there was fuck all happening in the final third. I think there was until the 88th minute, it was a shot on target apiece. I think it was the third minute Kozewski had that chance that came off the defender's head. Then Ollie Sale stuck the paw up and somehow saved it. That was a great save. Then after that, they decided to go on a sabbatical and say, fuck it, we're not going to shoot at goal for a long, long time. And, I think Perth were over the moon at the end of the game that they got a clean sheet away from home and a point. I think they saw that as 3 points, and I don't think that's being harsh. Just looking back at the first two games, then the Perth Glory record over fucking forever. It's awful, their away record. So a 0-0 scoreline against the Mariners away from home was good for them. Adam Taggart, to me, looks a forlorn, frustrated figure. He's not getting any service. We saw him giving some friendly advice to some of his teammates about when they should fucking release the ball and where they should fucking release the ball to. A lot of gesticulation and I think there was quite a few F-bombs thrown in there. So he looks extremely demoralised, if I'm going to be honest. His body language says it anyway. And as far as the Mariners go, they seem to play good football. They move it fine until they get to that final third, and then it's there's no one with real spark. Or I would say also that predatory instinct in front of goal at the moment either. Miguel DePizio is a massive miss for them. And I spoke to Jacko after the game, and he said obviously he's that player that we've looked at them in the last couple of years. You've got your Tulios, your Incololos, your Cummings, all these players that can change a game with something dynamic and something exciting. He's that player. Well, he's had knee injury. He's had surgery on cartilage. He's gone for at least 8 weeks, apparently. There's no timeline on it. It's just whenever he's back. So they're really lacking in that front third. There was a ball put over from McCalmont to the back post, and Kozewski put it back across the goal, across the 6-yard line, who was exceptional, Kozewski, by the way, in the game. And I watched Alu Kual in that moment, and as the ball's going in the air, he just sort of stands and watches it go over his head. And I was thinking at the time, fuck, move to, just as that ball's going to the back post, you start moving towards the 6-yard line just in case something happens and it comes back. And it's not until Kozewski gets there and puts it across that he sort of realises, goes, oh shit, I should have been there. And they're the little moments that I'm not seeing from the Mariners at the moment. They're that instinctive, when that ball's moving in a certain area, I've got to be in this other area. And they're missing them because it's not happening. And I think that could be a struggle for them with no DePizio there. They don't have that attacking flair. They struggle.
I mean, is it fair? We know that they were goal scorers last year, but Edmondson didn't score many goals. Qual didn't score many goals. They shared it. They really shared the goal scoring around, but they haven't addressed that issue, have they?
They haven't. I
mean, that's the bottom line.
Yeah, well, that's it. And I don't think Fei Zhao looks like he's going to be the player they thought he was going to be. And you're right.
But
last year,
have you seen the calf muscles on that kid?
No, but you were talking.
Vitor Fei Zhao has the biggest calf muscles in the A-League, bar none. There you go. Whether that means he can play football, we'll have to wait and see.
Is that a shat stat? But you're right. Look, last year they spread the goals around, and they still won everything. And I think that's an anomaly because most teams that win the league or the championship or whatever it is, they have an outstanding goal scorer who scores 15 to 20 goals, and then they have someone not far behind them with that 10 to 12 bracket, and the rest all contribute a little bit. I don't even think the Mariners had someone who scored more than 8 goals or 7 goals last year. They spread it around, but that's an anomaly. They need someone in the January window who's going to come in and go bang from the start and start banging goals in and get half a dozen goals in the back end of the season, because I can't see where they're going to come from.
Okay, the other big talking point, which Macca made his feelings very well felt on the broadcast.
Oh, yeah, hang on. I've got to tell people to fuck off soon.
The Mariners should have had a penalty. Yeah, we're going to Ben on this one. Ben, did you see it, or were you caught in traffic heading back from the ground?
No, I don't think I did see that. I can't remember it. Macca might have the bloody...
That's good, because I can tell everyone to get fucked. So I'll dive in here, right? I had a few people on Twitter say, "Oh yeah, take your yellow shaded glasses off. It's never a handball. His hand's in a natural position." Well, I will say fuck off, because I'll say I never have my yellow tinted glasses on, because if it was for Wellington, if it was for Auckland, if it was for Sydney, I would have said the same. Now the reason I would say the same is because in the week, and I also copped it for this, saying about the distance the ball travelled. The week before the season started, and we sat with John Moss, and he talked to us about how the handball rule was going to be a little bit relaxed and changed, and if a hand's in a natural position, you're not going to get as penalised. The caveat he put on that when he spoke to us was, if you're a metre away from the ball and your arms go out in the natural response and the ball hits you from a metre, you can't get out the way quick enough. You can't react in time. But further away, then it might be different. So that, for me, travelled 8 metres. His arm's up here, and as the ball comes to him, he moves it down, and it's like he's moving it out the way of an action, but it actually comes down into the air, and the ball still hits his arm. The distance travelled was a fair way. That's why I would say, whether it was the Mariners, whether it was down the other end, I would have still said it was a penalty if it was Perth's end. I don't give a fuck who the shirt is. For me, the distance travelled, he hit his arm, and there was a Mariners player behind him who was potentially going to score a goal. That also makes a big difference. Excuse me. So that's why I think it's a penalty. There's another penalty coming up that we'll talk about, and I'll say that was a penalty as well.
Yeah. But this is the whole question and the whole problem with natural position. Because yes, you can't cut your arm off, but you also can, if you leave it in a natural position now, a player's going to start saying, well, there are my arms down by my side, and that gives you an extra 15 centimetres on either side. If that had been a goal kick and the ball had travelled 60 metres through the air and then, moved at the last moment, or the player had to adjust and hits the arm, it's going to be a free kick every day of the week. And it wasn't even hit hard, the cross. It was an outside of the foot flick. It was one of those ones where you sort of dink the ball up and over. I tend to agree with Macca on this one, but it was overturned.
So this is the other thing,
this was a
is the other thing. So being overturned is clear and obvious error. This is that they also said this to us, that they're going to try and stay out of things more. Now, okay, so we're having this debate, and you go on social media, there's a massive debate about it on both sides. So is it clear and obvious then? It hits him on the bicep in mine, or does it hit him up higher here? Yeah. Is the distance too far away? All of these things come into play. Well, then if all of these things are being discussed, is it a clear and obvious error then? Just stick to the decision on the pitch. This is the other thing that annoyed me as well, that clear and obvious error. I didn't think it was, but, come at me, fuckwits. I'll tell you to fuck off again.
I do remember it now, actually. It's come back to me, and I feel like the rules are the rules, though. Like, they keep saying if your arms are down by your side, then it's,
fucking typical defender comes to his fucking defence.
I'm just trying to get some consistency here. The consistency is as long as your arms are down by your side, and he quickly moved them down there and it hit them in his arms.
Yeah. And that's a great error, though. Yeah, as a defender, so in your day, you knew if that hit your arm, it was going to probably be a penalty. How would you feel in this day and age? You wouldn't know what to do, would you? Like, do I keep my arms there? Do I move them?
Yeah, I'm talking about this day and age. For me, I'd go, in my head, I was going, oh, that's fair, no pen. But, it was certainly different back in our day, 100%.
Yeah.
Let's turn back the clock a little bit. We had one question for you from an anonymous source on your side of the ditch, Ben, who had a question for you about VAR, saying, I think you had 3 or 4 red cards in your A-League career in 180 81 matches. Not too
Not
bad.
too bad, no.
Not too bad.
Yeah.
Would VAR have added a few to those over the years, you reckon, or not?
Would have added some, but I probably would have lost one. I always remember the Geronimo one when he was playing for Adelaide and he got played through, and I kind of I sort of just, tried to slow him down a little bit, but I didn't actually pull him back, and he ended up tumbling over because he felt my contact, and he got the free kick and I got sent off. So that one may have got overturned potentially, but there was certainly a couple of I always get reminded, I had Melbourne Victory in the old days used to block, in the Kevin Muscat days when they'd all sit there and like just pretty much get in your way and block you. And I always remember Adrian Leyer was trying to do that, and I think it was Adrian Leyer, I can't remember who it was now, but I just sent a random haymaker into the mix because he was just blocking me, and I got him right on the chops, and it just sunk him straight down to the ground. And so that like the everyone it was quite a big tussle, and then all that was on was he was on the ground, and I remember going in at half time and I says, I think I connected him, and they were like, you didn't connect him, you dropped him on his ass. And then I ended up getting 3 weeks suspension because they took it to the judiciary, and that was me. But there was one other one, and
maybe you're the VAR's all your fault.
Probably, yeah, very much so. And then there was another one, and it was Melbourne Victory again, and they were blocking me, and it was who's just retired last year from Melbourne Victory? He's been at the Victory for years. Broxton. And anyway, he blocked me, and he was running right at me, and I was running for the ball, and he came running out at me, and he had this smile on his face like, I'm going to block you. And I thought, screw you. And I went in there with the elbow, and I got him right in the snout and dropped him. And anyway, no one saw it, got away with it. He was giving it to me, you dirty bastard. And that went to the judiciary as well. And they says, because he was so small, he was so short, you hit him in the nose. But if it was a normal sized person, you would hit him in the chest. And it got overturned. I got nothing for it.
I love it.
So it was his fault for being too short.
I thought for a moment you were going to say he came out to block you and he tripped you over or something.
No, so it was a bit of a 50-50 to be fair, the old VAR. I think it probably would have been a 50-50.
Brilliant.
All right. Well, there was one other thing to say about this match. I think apart from well, there were a few things to say about this match. The Adam Taggart isolation and the frustration we've addressed.
Yep.
A quick word for Brad Tapp. He's heading off, by all accounts, to have scans today on his knee. We all hope for his sake that's not what it could be, which looked pretty bad when it buckled underneath him in the penalty box about 10 minutes after having already decided to try and play on after having clearly damaged his knee. Let's hope he's okay. Now, we are on YouTube now as well, against our better judgment. For those that have seen it, you've just seen Ben Sigmund show how to give an elbow to the face of an opposition player. And I brought in a little bit of show and tell because Macca's all been showing off all his football jerseys over the last couple of weeks. Do you have any what's your favourite jersey that you've got during your career, Ben, that you've got on the hidden away?
Yes. Look, I've got a lot that I sort of went through them the other day to show my boy, but like Spain, probably my Wales shirt, because Wales was, I'd sort of been in the wilderness with the All Whites for about sort of 5 years. I'd made a debut at 18, but then I sort of got another crack at about 24, 25, and that Wales game was when I first came back, and sort of never looked back from that moment, and sort of played an outstanding 2-2 draw with them, which we were never expected to do any good. And yeah, so I swapped with Ryan Giggs and got the Wales shirt, which was pretty cool.
That's not a bad one. Better than getting Jones or something on the Gwyn on the back of your Wales jersey.
I wanted Craig Bellamy because Craig Bellamy was just giving it to me. He was calling me a sheep shagger the whole game, and he was just I was just copying all sorts from him, and I was giving it to him. Yeah, exactly. I couldn't believe it, but anyway, it was cool to get that shirt.
All right. Well, I'm going to quickly show off a couple. I'll start with a funny one because, as some of you may know, I spent a bit of time at a club overseas.
Fuck PSG, here we go.
So here we go. This is just to piss off Macca, actually. So here's one that I got from Thomas Meunier. Now, you may not know Thomas Meunier, Belgian international. I think if you remember the World Cup in Russia, it was his run down the right for Belgium to score the late winner against Japan. It was a fantastic goal, a fantastic finish to this game. Now, Thomas is a good guy, and he wrote here on it, to my favourite Aussie. You can't see it. There you go. To my favourite Aussie, Thomas Meunier. Now, this is important because, A, it's not Macca, his favourite Aussie, but B, he played at Club Rouge with Matt Ryan and thinks Matt Ryan was the greatest goalkeeper he ever played with, and he played with some good ones. And I'm still his favourite Aussie.
Well, I was going to say, maybe you're the only Aussie he's ever fucking met.
No, good guy. We will try and get him out to the A-League at some point. A topical one for you, Macca, at the moment.
No, I told you we're not going to talk about that shit. Put it away.
I'm not talking about that shit. I'm talking about the player.
Yeah.
Signed by the great man.
Yeah.
And then this one. Now, this one, for 10 years, I've got hundreds of these, by the way. I'm doing 3 a week for the next 3 seasons.
No, you're not.
I made a TV show for the club every week, and every year they gave me a T-shirt to use for promotion of jersey, and I got it signed. Now, this one is probably one of the greatest squads of all time. So there's Mbappe, Neymar, Buffon, Verratti, Thiago Silva, Edinson Cavani.
Is that the year they won the Champions League?
Marquinhos. Champions League. We made the final.
No, is that the year they won the Champions League?
No,
they haven't won the Champions League, have they?
Fucking hell. And at York City?
Oh, don't start him off. He gets angry. Come on, we're not talking about European football. We're talking about A-League.
That was a little treat. All right, so let's go back to A-League. I'm a Euro snob, by the way.
Yeah, fuck we.
Next up. Western Sydney. So this was the final match on the Saturday night, the big one. Western Sydney versus Adelaide. Western Sydney celebrating their 10th year anniversary of winning the Asian Champions League. They wheeled out all the old celebs from that night in Saudi, including Ante Kovic. They didn't bring the referee, which anyway, it was a day to celebrate the history of the Western Sydney Wanderers. Unfortunately, they couldn't get the win. Adelaide did it. It was one of the old boys as well, Dylan Parias with 2 goals. One of the big let's start talking points. Macca, I'll let you go first for your appraisal of this one, because you were probably home quicker than me from the coast. I was watching this in the car on the way back, not driving, but watching it on the car on the way back from the coast. Night to forget for Tristan Vidakovic, first and foremost. Night to remember for Dylan Parias.
Yeah, look, couple of young goalkeepers who were all wrapping up in the first week have, as football does, they've come crashing back down to earth, but that's football and that's a young footballer's journey. They'll learn from that and they'll come from it. Yeah, Vidakovic had a nightmare. He wasn't helped by his teammates, let's be honest, with some of the defending in front of him and the space that was afforded and the reactions to things that happened in front. Couple of poor efforts that gave away goals. Dylan Parias, a year at Western Sydney and then goes to Adelaide and gets a couple of goals against him, and sort of, I guess it's that revenge of getting against your old club. So I'm sure he was a happy man at the end of the night. But look, for me, I watched Adelaide last week and last week and then on the weekend again because it was they missed first week. And I think Stefan Mork has such a big part to play in the way that they play. And the fact that he plays in that attacking midfield 10 position, but also looks to make runs in behind, disturbs defences so much. And it disrupts fullbacks, centre-backs, midfielders, wingers, all those 4 different people around him in who's going to pick him up and shuffling them around when he makes his movements, that it causes chaos. Now, he's played 70 minutes in his last 2 games, but his movement when Jovanovic makes runs, say he runs the near areas, he'll run between the centre back and the full back. And then it's all a case of, well, does the centre back stay and go with him and allow Jovanovic to be 1v1? Does the full back come in and then allow the winger to be free? Or does the midfielder drop into that space and then allow Ethan Alligic or whoever's in the midfield with him to get space as well? And he causes this problem a lot. And I think that's one of the reasons why Adelaide have been so dominant, particularly in the first half when he's full of energy and full of beans, because he disrupts defences and he causes the defence to they're affected. They have to move and compensate for him, which allows other players to get space. And I think he was directly or indirectly involved in two of the goals where if you just watch the play, you think, oh yeah, shit defending or good play. But if you take a wider look at the picture and watch his positioning off the ball or his run that he makes to get us into those positions, he affects Josh Brillante number of occasions to pull him out of position, which allows other people to get on the ball. He wins the free kick that when he could be with his positioning between people that Dylan Parias ends up scoring from the rebound on. And I think he's having a massive effect on the opposition, and it's a really pivotal part of the way that Adelaide play. And the players around him who are scoring the goals and reaping the benefits, he's the silent worker for me that allows all that to happen. And his experience and positioning that he brings to that team is causing all kinds of problems. And I think that was influenced Western Sydney, the way they defended at times, because I think they watched the week before and saw how dangerous he can be in his movement. And it cost them again.
Siggy, how do you deal with that on the pitch when you're at the back, the central defender, and you're seeing something tactically that is not matching up? Is it a question of just going, like, you focus on your job, the one-on-one, or do you try and wait just for half time and get the coach in to try and change something up? Or how frustrating is it for you at the back when you're already occupied and you're seeing runners come from midfield? Is that one of the hardest things?
It is. It's one of the hardest things, and the smart players recognise it too. You know, that's the biggest battle as a centre back. You're like, well, I've got my man, but there's another guy over there. Do I take him? Don't I take him? Sometimes you get caught in between them both, so then they're both free. You know, it's the smart players stand over, you know, away from things to make it harder. And do you follow them? Don't you follow them? And yeah, I always used to try and sort it out on the field, because sometimes you haven't got time to half time because you're copping it. You might be 1 or 2 down and you're like, shit, we can't afford to go 3 or 4 here. But then sometimes, you know, a good coach will, you know, make changes within 20 minutes. Sometimes you have to do that, you know, and I think a good coach will see it and move on it pretty goddamn quickly. And then the other option is just try and get into half time and try not to have too much damage. Because, you know, if you're 2 or 3-0 down at half time, it's pretty hard to come back these days.
There's a lot of pressure on Western Sydney at the moment. They had that barren spell where they were changing coaches. Things looked a little bit rosier under Marco Rudan at first. They were back into finals football. They missed out again on finals football last season. We know they've got Juan Mata. They've got a couple of injury concerns at the moment. Lawrence Thomas is looking like the big one all of a sudden, having thought after that first week, well, there's a bit of depth here. They've got Jordan Holmes on the bench as well, Tiger Harper, who had one game last season, I think, as well. They do have players there, but this is an important season for them against an Adelaide side. You know, where do we rate Adelaide in all of this, Macca? Perhaps you first, because, you know, we expect a lot of Western Sydney. We don't expect so much of Adelaide. Did that have a bearing on what we saw?
Well, we heard Harp say in the commentary that this is a big half of football. And he said, but we seem to be saying this with Western Sydney with monotonous regularity because they just don't seem to find that boost to keep going. I think Simon was saying it's nearly a year or since 1st of January or something since they've won at home, which is mind-boggling for a team like Western Sydney to not have won at home in nearly a whole year. When he said that, I nearly fell off the chair because I was like, fucking hell, this is a big club with everything given to them. They've got the envy of everyone in Australia is their training facility. The stadium's brand new. They're in the heartland, I would say, of Australian football in Australia, where there's that many people condensed into that area from all different backgrounds of the world, where football is number one. They've got the population density there. That this club should be fucking flying. And it just seems to stutter along and can't quite find momentum, and it just seems to be stuck in the slow lane when it just needs to stick the blinker on and go into the third lane and go fucking 120 on the outside. And they just seem to keep falling at the precipice when you think, okay, are they getting through this? Is this the new dawn of a new start? But defensively, we heard Brandon Borrello at the end of the game say, silly errors cost us. Well, we've talked on that. When you flip on the other side, Adelaide, this small town that has no budget, they don't have really their own academy. It's Football South Australia that does the academy work for them, but they're very well aligned with them. And Carl Viet came from that system and had it all set up and running well. And I had a talk with Carl about 10 years ago when I started my coaching journey about how they set up their system, because when they went to the NTC tournaments, Adelaide were fantastic, or South Australia were fantastic. So I sat down with him and picked his brain, and it wasn't rocket science. It was just well organised, good people involved, good structures in place. And they're relying on these kids coming through. And you keep thinking, all right, well, they've lost another 5 players, or they're sold another 3 or 4 players overseas, and then in comes another couple of young players. But what I also like about Adelaide is they back the players. They make a decision on a player. I think they're the only club at the moment has got 3 or 4 players on 4 or 5 year contracts, young players. And they say, well, we're going to back you. We're going to give you a long-term contract. That's the backing to go. We believe that we can make you into a player that will go overseas, and then we can get some benefit from it as well. As a player, when you get that backing, I'm going to bust my ass for you regardless. Some people will say, oh, you give a player a 4 or 5 year contract, they go into cruise mode. I'm the opposite. If someone backs me for 5 years, I'm dying for them to go, you've backed me, I'll fucking do everything you tell me to do because you've shown faith in me. And I think that's what they're doing well in Adelaide, sprinkled with, the senior players we talked about, Mork and Isais is doing a wonderful job at the back. I know he doesn't want to be there, but he's doing a wonderful job. And they just keep doing it. It's good to see.
Siggy, what did you make of this one?
A question for you guys. What about, in terms of Western Sydney with Macca? Like, I'm looking at him now and I'm like, don't get me wrong, excellent player, unbelievable. But I'm looking at him now going, are they using him properly? Is he fit? He doesn't want to be running around doing all the hard work. He just wants to be on the ball and create. And I'm looking at him at the moment, he's not really getting on the ball. People around him aren't doing enough for him to be able to just be sitting there just pinging passes, because he won't run all day. We know that. And at the moment, I feel like they haven't quite got that balance right with him.
Yep, I agree with that as well.
I think that's spot on, because you've got that player that has that vision and that pass, and that's what you have to convince the rest of the team. You have to convince the rest of the team, and that's the coach's job at the end of the day, isn't it, that we've got this talent. So unfortunately, 10 of you have to run for him. You have to run for his legs. Look, Barcelona did it for 15 years because they had a good number 10 who refused to do anything when he didn't have the ball. It worked for them.
Yeah.
It wasn't I don't think there's many people that will say that wasn't such a good idea. No. Argentina's the same.
Well, I think
so. Look, you have to accept that.
Without a doubt, yeah. And as players, you have to recognise what someone's qualities are. And if he's got the quality that can change a game for you, then I'll do everything for you to put you in those positions to change the game for us. I will say that I was, again, impressed by Sapsford and Hammond when they came on. I thought they gave really good energy and livened them up, and their mobility as well. And that's, you think about if you've got young players on with him at the same time and they do all that running, then he can do that. Give me the ball, you run for me, I'll ping off the passes. But yeah, look, it's not been the best start of the season for Western Sydney, and it'll be interesting to see, can they turn this around?
All right, time to shatter stat. Now, I have to divulge everything here. Stato, who normally provides us with the extra in-depth, several layers of stats, is away on holidays after churning out the A-League men's and A-League women's media guides for everyone's enjoyment. We're not going to begrudge him that. He's allowed to head off and have a little break. I'm sure he was still watching the football. In fact, I know he was, because there was one stat he did release on social media overnight, which was 31 goals scored in the round of A-League women, the most ever in a single round of A-League women for the start of the season. So I've had to go back to trying to do this myself. Now, it's been a long time. I haven't had to do the deep dive into stats. So I'm going with in fact what are not stats. So I read I saw last night there was a stat saying that Bruno Fornaroli could become just the second player to score 50 goals at Amy Park. Now, he's sitting on 49, and given that he was in the bench and he was looking around when we saw him in the pre-game of Victory's game yesterday afternoon, looking around going, people obviously asking him, why aren't you playing? Why aren't you playing? And you could see him just go, in classic, not putting water over any flames here, just adding a little bit of fuel, So I suspect Bruno may never get that 50th goal at Amy Park. That one, Jamie McLaren's the other one, by the way, who scored 50 goals. So I started going through the stats of almost people. Jason Hoffman got it right. He finished and retired on 300 A-League matches. Yeah. So well played to him. There was, of course, Don Bradman, who just needed one fucking run in his last innings or whatever to have that 100 batting average. And he got 99.94. Josh Cavallo, who we haven't seen for a long time, he's been sitting on 49 matches for A-League. Let's hope that he can get that 50th A-League match with Adelaide. Storm Rue had to sit on the bench the whole 90 minutes on the weekend, needing just one appearance for his 250th. Nikola Mileuznic is sidelined at the moment with injury with 149. Adam Taggart, now he's on 47 goals for Perth. If you saw the weekend's game for Perth against the Mariners, hard to see where 3 more goals are going to come from for Adam Taggart this season. Maybe that's being a bit harsh. I do remember Danny Vukovic sat on 90 clean sheets for about 6 weeks before finally getting the record of 91, 6 years of clean sheets. He finished his career, by the way, on 103. He is by far the leader in terms of clean sheets. So there you go. Stats that aren't yet stats. Scott Neville, another one. He's sitting on 296 A-League games. He out with an Achilles? Achilles or knee? Scott Neville. Maybe. And I didn't check yours, Macca, if you had any nearly stats or things that you could have done. Ben, you're in all competitions for the Phoenix. You were 187. Because I guess you didn't play much you were 187 appearances back in all competitions. But
not bad, mate. Number 5 in the list, or number 6 in the all-time list, I think. For the Knicks.
Oh, yeah. Not bad.
Not bad.
I sometimes wish, when you talk about milking a season, I always wish I milked one more just to get me to 200. But
yeah, there you go. Exactly. So those stats.
But I was well and truly done, and I thought, no, I can't. There's no way I can steal a year.
We had a couple of questions for you, Ben, before we attack the last game. Who was the biggest dickhead you ever played against? And I think everyone's waiting with bated breath for your answer here, because he could be sitting on the pod with us at the moment.
No, definitely not. No, I love playing Macca. If anyone's going to that place, that Macca was very enjoyable. It would have to be, Kevin Muscat was a nasty, solid, hard bugger. And then Barisha was always at you. I always remember I learnt pretty quickly with Barisha because I used to get stuck into him and get under his wick. But the angrier he got, the better he got.
Yeah.
So you'd be at him, and you're thinking, oh yeah, I'm getting under his skin, and then next minute, boom, he's slid in, tap in, 1-0. So I learnt pretty quickly to say nothing to Berisha.
Just be nice to him. Cup of tea, mate. Cup of tea.
Yeah. He literally I think he scored a hat trick one night against us. I can't remember how many. He definitely got 2. And I just remember thinking, oh man, I'm going to put my hand up here and take the blame for this loss because I've got him too angry. But great
What about
player.
you, Macca?
Great player.
You in terms of defenders.
Siggy just reminded me there is that when I first came back from overseas, it was Muskie and Adrian Leia, and I found that they were fucking horrible. They would come through knee-high studs, but the thing is, they got away with everything. They would go through the back of someone knee-high, and it would not even be a foul, let alone a yellow card or a red card, and you were just like, hang on a second, like, we're not talking back in the 70s and 80s here where that shit was just normal in 90. We're talking in the 2000s, like late 2009, 10, and they were just fucking bad challenges. I saw Adam Kwasnik once get taken, I think it was by Leia, stud high through the back of the knees, and the referees just play on. And he's just like, fucking, where's the player safety here? And for a long time, I didn't know Muskie off the pitch, and I used to think he was an absolute arsehole. I hated him. And then you'd go to someone, you'd say, oh, no, off the park he's really nice, and you'd run into him and talk to him. You're like, yeah, he's a nice bloke, isn't he? That really annoys me because I had it in my head, this guy, I fucking don't like him. But anyway.
That's so true, true. I think there's a lot of players like that, like on the field it was just do or die. There was no option apart from winning the football game.
Yeah.
And then they could always switch it off and, have a beer or catch up with them. And there was so many players like that. They've almost got 2 personalities, eh?
Jacob Burns was another big one for me. He was a huge one. I played against him when he was at Perth, and we would be into each other. I mean, stepping on each other's toes, elbows, punches, whatever it is, and verbals, pretty much every verbal you could imagine, and just on that pitch hated each other. And then I left Northern Queensland Fury and went to Perth, and I actually flew, and I was meeting them in Melbourne at the airport, and I was a little uncomfortable because I thought, he's a captain. We have been at each other in every game, and I thought, this is going to be really uncomfortable. And to be fair, he walked straight over at the airport, saw me, he's like, Macca, welcome aboard, can't wait to have you, like, so glad you're here, this is awesome. And I was like, oh, like it just dispelled all the awkwardness because I thought this could be very awkward. But, Burnsy off the pitch is one of the loveliest guys ever, loves himself sick, but on the pitch is an absolute grub of all grubs.
This is A-League Off Air. We only talk about A-League Off Air, but perhaps there's a little opportunity there to just say congratulations to the nastiest nice guy of Australian football, Kevin Muscat, on winning the Chinese Super League.
Took my old club to championship.
Shanghai Port?
Yeah.
Or Edgeworth United?
Edgeworth Eagles, mate. Get it fucking right.
Eagles, fuck, sorry.
All right, let's get to the last one.
Yeah, no, won the league. Let's head to the last game. Now, this is just a week after. We're already going long. Fuck. I did have Neve Owens sent me a personal request that we go a little bit long this week so that she has her full marathon training duration of her run to listen to the pod.
Unlucky, Neve. We're not going 2 hours. You can stick that up your ass.
Oh, you think she's going to set a world record for the marathon?
She's going to have to
2
go
hours.
Quicker. Yeah.
All right. So a week after Ali Reza Fagani did his pulling up socks routine for the most pedantic refereeing in the history of the A-League, Jack Morgan let everything fucking go in Melbourne Victory versus MacArthur. Did you see this?
Yes.
There were rugby tackles. There were in your face. There was kicking the ball away. There was Luke Bratton going in knee high. No worries, boys. This is new refereeing. We're letting you do whatever you want these days.
Play on.
And it was exactly play on, play. There's no blood, play. And so this one, MacArthur, it looked for a little while like they were going to do a cup final repeat when Valère Germain scored 6 minutes into the second half. But this time Melbourne Victory managed to turn it around. Daniel Arzani from the penalty spot Reno Piscopo in just 10 minutes later, less than 10 minutes later, with a sensational goal. Siggy, did you see this one? What did you make of it? Because Macarthur can be a frustrating team to play against, because normally you dominate them and then you look up when the final whistle goes and you've lost 1-0. This time it didn't work out that way.
And I felt like the first game I was like, they're going to race away with this league. You know, the first game they beat Perth, you know, absolutely just demolished them. And then I was thinking, you know, that they're going to be the team to beat. And so, you know, then they, you know, lost last week. And then when they scored, I thought, oh, yeah, they'll get back on track here. You know, they're still going to be the team to beat. But, you know, Victory proved, I thought, that they are always going to be a tough team. Every year I always looked at Victory and, you know, you think, how are we going to beat these guys? And you know, it was a good game, but I think Victory definitely deserved it. And Piscopo's goal, like, you know, another cracking finish. And, you know, you can't take that away from him. And I'm stoked for him, because I think he struggled at Newcastle. Like, you know, I don't think he sort of showed his best with them. And, you know, the first few games watching him in this Victory team, I think he's going to come back out and show us what he's really got. Because I you know, when he was at the Phoenix, I thought he was fantastic, and, you know, it's good to see him get on the score sheet.
Even at the Phoenix, though, he kind of didn't fulfill his potential there either, did he? I remember he scored a great goal to get the Phoenix into the finals probably 3 seasons ago now under Uffy, and it was a great goal, and it was like, here he is. This is what this kid has in his locker. But he didn't really do it at the Knicks. He certainly didn't do it at Newcastle, did he?
No, and probably the injuries. I think I find that he might have 2 or 3 good games, and then next minute you're like, oh, where is he? Oh, he's injured. You know, so I think for him it would be about consistently playing week in, week out. And if he starts doing that, then that's when the confidence comes. And, you know, I think, you know, we all know how much the confidence comes when you're playing week in, week out. You're match fit, you know, you're doing all those little touches, you know. But for me, you know, players like him need to be scoring as well. And you know, so you know, it would be great to see if he can get a run of 10 games now to see what he can really do. Because you're right, he's sort of in and out, and his consistency needs to get a little bit better.
Yeah, well, I thought the rope-a-dope Muhammad Ali tactic was going to work again for Macarthur. We saw it in the Australia Cup final, and it looked to be playing out to perfection again. Just come on, keep coming, and then bang, we'll go and score a goal. And you were like, fuck, they're doing it, they're going to do it. And you could see the frustration building up. And then obviously the penalty, for me, it's a penalty. He's, you know, we had a discussion before we came on, Robbie, but his arm was up by his side, up here somewhere. It wasn't far away from him, but, you know, his arm's up next to his head. You can't complain with that. It's a penalty for mine. And yeah, look, this Melbourne Victory team, I thought they'd struggle to score goals, and we've seen a little bit of it. But if, like you say, Reno Piscopo, I think he can have a real breakout season this year. Stays fit, can score goals. He's taking players on. He's setting goals up. And, you know, we were all saying that was going to be Daniel Arzani at the start of the year, but the way Reno Piscopo's playing, Daniel Arzani's just going to have to keep waiting by the looks of it. Like, he doesn't look bad when he comes on by any stretch of the imagination, but Reno Piscopo is saying, well, you want this position, you're going to have to take it off me. And at the moment, I can't see why he would be not playing. You've got the 2 behind in Valadon and Teague again, who they patrol everything that comes back out. They win everything that comes back out. They do a wonderful job there. Valadon's, you know, winning tackles in the last minute to help put the pressure on. They just look good, fluid. They look like they constantly put pressure on for a long time. You didn't know if the goals were going to come, but then, like we said, Piscopo steps up when he's needed. Now, do I still have a little bit of a question mark about their final Finishing, yes, I do. Like, it's taken a penalty and a bomb from 25 yards for them to score after having so much possession, so much opportunity, so many shots, so many balls in the box. I do have a little question mark over that. There's still this big question mark about Bruno Fornaroli. Why is he not even involved now? Like, is it just got to that point where Bruno's going, fuck you, if I'm not playing? And I'm not saying he has, but, from experience, we've seen it a million times, haven't we, where a senior player's not playing and they go, do you know what, fuck it, I'm not. Last week, you put Jing Reese on before me. I didn't even get to go on. Fuck you. Don't worry, don't put me on the bench. You don't know. We don't know what's going on in the background. It might have just been, that was just the way it panned out. But there just seems to be something in that finishing aspect for Melbourne Victory over the last few years that I still don't think they've just put their finger on it. You know what? They'll probably prove me wrong going forward and banging goals left, right and centre. But there's this question mark there.
Yeah, well, I would add to that Jed Drew could have probably won this game 3 times over in the first half as well.
Yep.
Valère-Germain, there were some great passes, there were some great touches. Yes, they went ahead and they were unable to hold it for the second game in a row as well, because the same thing happened to them last week against Newcastle, a similar scenario. But when they do if they can reproduce what Siggy was talking about, running away with it like they did against Perth, I think there were still enough warning signs there for Melbourne Victory to think that perhaps MacArthur as well should not be discounted just yet. All right, there is one more game left in this round. It's tonight. It's Western United taking on Melbourne City in a Melbourne derby at Amy Park. Very quickly, we're not going to talk about it because we record on Mondays, and so that's just too bad. We'll maybe mention it if we can remember next week. What do you think? Predictions, Siggy? Western United versus Melbourne City. What do you expect?
Yeah, I just think that, they're still figuring out each other in terms of the team. There's a bit of consistency sort of up and down, not quite nailed it down. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. Melbourne City, I would have always said, would have probably been the dominator, but I think Melbourne City is still sort of, not hit their straps yet anyway, and so I'm going to go 1-1.
Macca?
He's took the words out of my mouth. There's no point me going on because I think exactly the same. Western United have been difficult to beat. They've had 2 1-1 draws. They find a way to get a goal. City still just not quite there. 1-1.
Is Lecky back? Do we know? Or is that thing still dragging on a little bit? Because there were a bit of smoke and mirrors last week for the derby where...
He'll make a difference. If he's back, that could make a difference.
Exactly, because I think City do have the quality. They have the individual quality. Aurelio Vidma was fucking pissed off last week with that first half performance as well. So I don't think we're going to see that from the side. But as you say, man for man, they're stronger than Western United. But Western United have some pretty talented youngsters as well coming through if they can play it. Okay, we're almost done. Time for shit or hit. Very quickly. Now, Reno Piscopo almost made it into the hit department, especially because he was shit and now he's a hit. So that almost ticked all the boxes. Well done, Reno Piscopo. But, Macca, we're going with the hit. It's got to be Auckland FC shithousery, doesn't it?
I love it. Yeah, the sign that they put up said, "Welcome to Ellington." And then in little letters underneath said, "We took the W back to Auckland." I love it. The Knicks came out the week before with some stuff. They waited till they got the win, and then it was I love that shit. That's very good. That's a hit. Good shit.
Good shit. And that's it. No, that's a hit. That's a hit. Shit. Goalkeepers. What the fuck's happened? Goalkeepers opening day were like referees. They were awesome. Now you're all shit again. Come on.
Keepers and refs. They're a different breed.
Just kidding. No, I'm a big supporter of the referees. And I was going to say, there was, who was it? John Moss told us that he wanted the referees to think more like players, to try and understand what's going through a players, to understand the game more, to be more like players. Why the fuck shouldn't players occasionally just try and think about what it's like to be a referee as well and put yourself in that position? Maybe that would change a fair bit of mentalities around the game as well. Plus, if you're a young kid playing football at the moment, fucking do some refereeing on the weekends. We need referees. There aren't enough referees, and you earn a bit of fucking cash.
Exactly. I got my boy. He's referee.
You know.
But Siggy, we always put ourselves in the referee's mind, didn't we? We were very nice to the refs and got along well with them.
Yeah, it's probably one of my, in all honesty, and looking back in my career, you know, if I can just say about the referees, I used to get so caught up in it, and I used to waste a shitload of energy worrying about all these shit decisions, which is just part of the game. And if I could give any advice, you know, to anyone listening, it's definitely a biggest regret, because the referees, it's bloody hard. It's such a hard job to do, and we need more and more of them. And if anything, I've sort of reflecting on my career, I probably should have kept my mouth shut a few more times than I did, but and not waste so much energy, because who's ever overruled a call when the referee makes a decision? It's not very often overturned, is it?
Have you ever refereed?
I did
for the kids?
For my boys' team, and mate, I copped it even just because I couldn't keep up, and the throw-ins, especially throw-ins, it's like, mate, I can't see it all the way over there. You know, like, it's out.
That's what I was going to say. Macca's got his boy doing some running the line at the moment up in the local leagues, and it's a good thing, because I did a bit of refereeing for school kids when I was still at school, and there is nothing more fucking edifying to put you back in your spot than realizing how shit a ref you are.
Yeah.
And how hard it is. Yeah. It's like, fuck, you feel bad. And it doesn't matter if it's kids or adults. They're looking at you going, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, maybe, it's not easy. So look, have a think about it. But fuck the refs. Fuck your goalkeepers. Lift your games.
Oh, God.
All right, we done?
Yeah,
Are we done? Are we done?
Hour and a half.
All right.
Sorry, people.
Thank you much. Thank you very much, rather. Daniel McBreen, as always, Macca. Siggy, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining us and regaling us with your stories and your Ryan Giggs jersey.
Cheers, Siggy.
Hope you keep enjoying.
Stuff, mate.
Exactly. Keep enjoying the resurgence, the renaissance of New Zealand football in the A-League. We love it.
Cool.
And for the rest of you, don't forget to like, subscribe, enter the competition, see if you can't win 2 tickets to the Unite round, and fucking rate your A-League. That's what we're here for.
I'm going to put my yellow-coloured glasses back on. Fuckwits. See yous.
And on that note, we'll see you again.